The I-Team reported these light poles with exposed wiring the same way residents would. The very next day, the city sent out crews and marked all of our complaints as completed. We returned to some of these light poles, and this is what we found. In a statement, DaVita Dialysis told us they can't comment on pending litigation, but they do take patient security and privacy very seriously. How is an officer going to respond to an emergency if they don't have fuel in their cars?
That was a mistake.
Is she going to have to end up dead in the back of a trunk before police, the courts, take this case seriously? Lead levels on these fences were 40 times higher than the standard for lead-based paint. What do you plan to do for these drivers who damaged their vehicles, arguably through your company's negligence?
I don't think it was our company's negligence.
So nothing. Well, just moments ago in this area, we see another ambulance responding to a call about a possible overdose. Police had a suspect, but the circuit attorney's office for months refused to issue charges because the officer involved in that case was on the exclusion list. An accused sexual predator was left free on the streets because this office dropped the ball.
Well, it wasn't my office that dropped the ball, it was my investigators that dropped the ball, yes.
You're in charge of those
Yes,
investigators,
sure.
they're your employees, they represent this office.
We made a mistake. I mean, there's no doubt we made a mistake. We made a huge mistake.
If you found the ring, where did it go?
I have no idea. I have no idea. We don't have any record of a ring.
Is this a record?
That's a record. I mean, I don't have the ring.
So this is a very basic question. I mean, it's on a permit. I'm sure you've seen your own permit or you know it exists.
I know a permit exists.
So is it fair that they have to breathe these chemicals? Well, it seems to me that if you have enough money and time, the city of Kirkwood will let you build whatever you want, regardless of how it impacts your neighbors.
I don't believe that.
Well, we put some of EcoATM's security features to the test. I tried to sell them an iPhone using somebody else's ID. Now, the kiosk denied that transaction. While her office is investigating, we decided to take a look at the laws surrounding personal property and your rights to defend yourself. Well, Paula isn't the only one who says she's been stalked by McCormick. Another classmate filed for an order of protection against him after that same high school reunion. He tells us that Stevens denies the charges and is looking forward to fighting them in court. For the I-Team, PJRandhawa, 5 on your side. Every evening, like clockwork, thousands of lights illuminate the city. They're supposed to make you feel safer, but in some cases, they do just the opposite.
It's not safe for an adult, much less a child.
In front of Karen Kaiser's home daycare, exposed wires
Don't touch it.
spill out of this city streetlight.
If they see something like that, they want to touch it.
Karen is right to be concerned. In 1990, a child was killed after touching exposed wires from a city light pole. In 2016, another child was hospitalized after touching an exposed wire in Windsor Park.
A kid could come here and play with this and touch it just right and be dead.
The I-Team asked electrician Eric Wolf to tag along as we visited broken streetlights around the city. Most had open complaints with the Citizen Service Bureau dating back years. Our first stop, a light on North Grand. According to CSB data, it's been like this for 3 years. And neighbors reported exposed wires where these lights used to be on Clara 2 years ago.
It's beeping. It's telling me, hey, there's voltage present.
Margot Sweeney is a grandmother sick of living beside the danger.
Someone can injure themselves because there's plenty of kids that get off the bus right there.
One wrong step on this city street and you may need a tetanus shot. That was the case with our photographer. He was gouged by the sharp metal coming out of the light pole.
That's dangerous. There's no sign here. It's not coned off. There's no protection around it.
Just a block away from Forest Park on this busy Central West End street, the I-Team found even more damaged streetlights.
They can brush up against that wire with their leg, and given the right circumstance, it could kill them. It's bound to happen if it doesn't get covered up and fixed.
The I-Team reported these light poles with exposed wiring the same way residents would. The very next day, the city sent out crews and marked all of our complaints as completed. We returned to some of these light poles and this is what we found. A barrel on these live wires and a few wraps of electrical tape on others. Do you think putting a barrel on live wires, is that sufficient? Is that good enough?
If that's all we did, no. You can put a barricade over it
in order to make it safe until you can come back.
Jamie Wilson is the director of streets for the city of St. Louis.
Both of these requests were marked as completed. So does that mean anyone is going to come back?
The base plate with the tape around there should not be a permanent, but the final solution will be banding. I'll look at those for sure.
If it had been Central West End, Creve Coeur, it would have been corrected the same day.
Margot's right. The I-Team took a look at census data and CSB reports. 9 neighborhoods where the majority of residents are white had the fastest response times to light pole complaints. It took an average of 9 days before complaints were closed by the city. In 22 city neighborhoods where the majority of residents are black, response times averaged 40 days, more than 4 times as long. Wilson says location isn't even a consideration for his crews.
Everybody here comes to work to replace the lights. They really don't care, again, where it's at.
You can do it, Nana.
Until they're fixed, residents like Margot and Karen can't let their guard down.
I should be able to send my kids out in the front yard, and my grandson should be able to ride his scooter, and I shouldn't have to worry about this being a safety hazard.
After our interview, Wilson sent out crews to put a more permanent fix on those light poles. Interestingly enough, on average, 1 light pole is knocked down per day, and they cost about $1,000 to replace. For the I-Team, PJRandhawa, 5 on your side. Welcome to the St. Louis City tow lot, where some people say once a vehicle passes through these gates, you may never see it again.
You'll just lose vehicles.
James Mundy, a former commissioner at the city's tow lot, is just one of several employees who've reported suspicious activity to the city and to the I-Team.
Well, I believe the citizens of St. Louis are definitely being scammed.
According to Missouri policy, here's how the lot is supposed to operate. Once a vehicle is towed by the city, the owner has 30 days to get their car back by paying the required fees. If a car goes unclaimed, it can either go to public auction, be sold for parts, or get crushed. Regardless of what happens to it, the city is supposed to make money off every vehicle stored on the lot. Current and former employees we talk to say that's not happening.
They know how to go in there and change the numbers and the name.
This current tow lot employee asked us not to reveal her identity. She's worried about losing her job. She worked with the I-Team to dissect hundreds of pages of tow lot records obtained through a Sunshine Law request. We found over an 11-month period in 2019, 155 cars on the lot were marked as redeemed, but with no money paid.
This is the total amount that the city was going to charge had the individual picked it up. You see down here, nothing was paid. It was redeemed, but it doesn't have the person it was redeemed to.
If our whistleblower is right, that's nearly $78,000 worth of tow and storage fees that the city missed out on. Car theft victims are the only people who can get their car back without a fee as long as it's done within a few days. Other than that,
Even a total vehicle, there are parts that are valuable. Yeah, no vehicle's going out there for free.
200, 225.
another set of records involves vehicles sold at auction. The records we looked at, there's no buyer listed.
You got to have a valid driver's license and ID to get these vehicles. Nothing's on there to show who it was sold to. They put a frivolous name on there. Some of their addresses have 9999 unknown.
If any of these allegations sound familiar, it's because various clouds of scandal have passed over the city's tow lot for years. Most recently in 2019, the I-Team uncovered this police report showing some cars were leaving the lot without the city seeing a dime.
It's a lot of people involved, and how many and how high up, I don't know.
State Senator Carla May says she's heard about mismanagement at the tow lot from several employees and a relative who once worked there. She urged the St. Louis mayor's office to investigate in 2019.
Cars were disappearing, set aside, held over, no money collected for the cars.
We brought all of these allegations to the man in charge, Commissioner of Streets, Kent Flake. Why are cars leaving the tow lot for free?
Cars should not be leaving city tow for free. All of 2020, we've been audited by both city and state. And to the best of my knowledge in all of these, they've never found that.
The I-Team is still waiting to see those audit reports. After the 2019 police investigation, Commissioner Flake says City Tow made several changes.
We went to a third-party auctioneer in fall of 19. Prior to that, the auction was ran by tow lot employees. We installed 3 more cameras. We've built in several layers of not necessarily management, but overseeing of positions.
Despite those upgrades, City Tow still does not have a manual of standard operating procedures.
We do have about 40 signs up on the wall with our work rules on them. We've been trying to get an actual work rule manual actually put together, so there would be no question about it.
That police report we told you about from 2019, well, it turns out that case is still open. Police couldn't give us any more details. School's out at Walnut Grove Elementary, and parents in the pickup line are about to learn something they didn't see coming. Do you recognize this man?
Oh God, that is every parent's nightmare. Like, oh my God.
The familiar face in this orange jumpsuit is a man who used to teach their kids.
I swear that teacher never touched you. You're a teacher, so how are you working here and you're doing stuff like that to kids?
A man prosecutors say graduated from teaching to rape and eventually attempted murder. November 2015, 36-year-old Deontay Taylor is a teacher's aide at Lusher Elementary School. Court documents accuse Taylor of taking a 7-year-old boy out of music class to his office, molesting him, and then putting the little boy back in class. Almost immediately, the boy's mother notified police and the child was examined for sexual assault. A few days later, the Hazelwood School District fired Taylor, but not over the suspected abuse, for, quote, violating school board policy. Now, they won't specify which policy, and we also found they didn't notify parents about what Taylor was accused of. Don't you think parents in the district would have wanted to know what this teacher was accused of?
It's very hard for parents to understand that we have to live by laws.
Oh my God.
I think it's absolutely insane. This is something that should have been spoke about.
DNA evidence confirmed the child was assaulted, but no DNA sample was taken from Taylor. He was not arrested. He wasn't even questioned by Florissant police. So when the student says, this teacher did this to me, why wasn't DNA taken from Deontay at that point? Police Chief Tim Lowry's answer may make your jaw drop.
And, for some reason, this case just basically sat on somebody's desk and was not investigated properly.
So basically, an accused sexual predator was left free on the streets because this office dropped the ball.
Well, it wasn't my office that dropped the ball, it was my investigators that dropped the ball, yes.
You're in charge of those
Yes,
investigators, they're your employees, they represent this office.
We made a mistake. I mean, there's no doubt we made a mistake. We made a huge mistake.
After being fired from the Hazelwood district for, quote, a violation of board policy, Taylor applied here in the Jennings School District to be a student teacher. And he got the job. Why wouldn't you tell his next employer? He went on to teach in multiple school districts and have access to potentially hundreds of kids. Why not let them know what he was accused of?
Well, it was an accusation. That's as far as it went.
After Jennings, Taylor got a job teaching 5th grade in the Ferguson-Florissant School District. Then, during his second year there, prosecutors finally charged Taylor for sexually assaulting his former student back in 2015. Police claimed there was new information, but the real reason was simple and heartbreaking. Were there new revelations that came out in 2018 that led to the reopening of this case? That's what we were told, but was it just the victim reporting it again?
Yes.
It's all here in court documents. Taylor would still be in school to this day if it wasn't for that little boy. 3 years after he had the courage to come forward, he reported the abuse again during an outburst at school. It was then police got a warrant for Taylor's DNA, and it was a match for the sample taken off the child's body back in 2015. So if he hadn't spoken about it in 2018, Deontay Taylor, an accused sexual predator, would still be in our school systems with access to other potential victims.
It's possible.
A possibility that leaves these parents in fear, because soon after he was charged with felony sodomy, prosecutors would also learn Taylor is HIV positive.
I think it's sad, and any parents that have children that could have came in contact with this person, they should definitely speak up and get their child tested, because it's absolutely ridiculous.
It took 3 years, but Deontay Taylor was taken out of class and finally put in jail. Unfortunately, prosecutors say Taylor wasn't done yet.